Hey guys, it's Matt for Your Driver Mike, coming in for another series video giving you tips on how to make the most money with Uber Eats. So let's just dive into it. I have a whole list, so if I look down, I'm checking my list just for accuracy. So number one is density. You want to be and drive and stay in the areas of your city or neighborhood with the densest restaurants. So think about maybe those areas around college campuses or the areas that are open late that serve food. Those dense areas, for a lot of folks, it might be common sense, but there's some strategy in that. I mentioned a few college campuses order a lot of takeout. Think about maybe the neighborhoods nearby that order a lot of takeout, and that is the number one strategy. Number two, the dollars. So Mike mentions accepting rides that are $7 or higher. And this is 100% true. So think about it. The higher and larger the order amount, the more money you get. And the more amount your tip will be, which we'll talk about later. But accept orders from $7, even $6. But once you get down there to an order that's really small, that's going to affect your take-home profit and your tip. Number three, the time of day. So this is huge. You could be making $30, $40, even $50 an hour, but if you go out too early and no one's ordering food and deliveries, then you're wasting your time. So avoid early mornings during the weekday. And a lot of folks, for many of us, they're going to work. So you're gonna have a little bit slower time frame between 6 a.m., 7 a.m., maybe even 8 a.m. I found this on a Friday and I was making amazing money after work during that dinner rush. But during the day, it was a little too early when I was out there at 7 a.m. on a Friday. So let's look. Number four, stay in those hot zones. So it's really tempting to take a request that's outside of one of those hot zones, maybe because that dollar value is really high, right? We just talked about dollar value. If you get a $15 order, but it takes you 30 minutes outside of the city, well, now you're going to be in a suburb where there's no restaurants and it's going to take you 20 minutes just to get back to that density area, right? So remember, it's all about density and getting a lot of orders in that little pocket, if you will, of dense restaurants. Trust me, you'll make a lot more money, possibly rejecting those orders that drive you well outside of the city. Now, here's another tip going down the list that goes along with that. Turn off your requests for orders while you're delivering. So this is probably a huge power tip that is very important for all of you on this channel. So as you're driving to a destination and you're about to drop off food, you can get order requests while you are on the road with that order. You can toggle in the app to turn off those requests. And here's why. We just talked about accepting orders that pull you out of that density location. You will not see the location of the pickup and drop off when this request happens to you during a ride. So think about that. You could be going somewhere close and you accept the new request while on the ride, but you are unaware that the delivery location is very far away. So it's a strategy, right? This is a huge power tip. And then once you deliver that food, you'll get new requests after that delivery has been accomplished. So that way you can think, is this close to me? Is this worth my time? Or is it going to be a request very far away? Okay, let's move on. So here's a really good one that goes along with that. If you want to keep that on, which means you'll get requests while you're driving, you're only going to see the address of that drop-off location, that customer. You're getting that request because that restaurant is already close to you. So when you drop off that first order, the second order is going to be very close, but you're not going to know where the drop-off location is. So use another app like Waze. And if you can safely look up that address on Waze before you accept it. and it'll show you, let's say it's Wood Street and Elm Street. So just type in Wood and Elm Street on Waze, and it'll show you how far away that delivery person is. I'm sorry, I should say that customer is. So then you can quickly decide, well, after I finish this first ride, is this new request worth it based on the distance? So I hope that made sense. Let me just pause and say, I love supporting my brother's channel. If you love the channel, give it a thumbs up, and if you love these series as well. So moving on. This is big for me. Make sure to set goals. I know it sounds silly and almost cliche, but hear me out on this. I drive 2 nights a week after work for 2 hours while my girlfriend is at work. I have about 2 hours, and if I make $100, that's fantastic to me. That's $50 or 40 some dollars plus tips. So those add up, right? If I'm driving 2 nights a week for 4 nights out of the month, that's $400 extra in your pocket. So, and we'll talk about celebrating those goals in a little bit, but make sure to set goals either after work for a few hours. Those hours add up, and especially on the weekends are big earning days for you. So moving on. Another tip for anyone watching who's new to this, maybe you're not new to this, I'd love to hear in the comment section below about parking. So in my opinion, and I live in Pittsburgh, it's a fairly large city, and parking can be difficult sometimes. But the tip that we give you, that Mike and I give you, don't sweat the parking, right? So if you're picking up an order, and let's say you can park close by to the restaurant, then park close by, and then put your blinkers on, put your emergency hazard lights on, and just pop into the restaurant. It'll take you a minute and come back out, and you should be good to go. I've never had any problems doing this. And again, this is my strategy. Most drivers, I would say, agree with this. And this is compared to paying for parking, right? You don't want to pay if you're picking up downtown, which I don't really recommend. Watch the other videos about our strategy behind where to go and where not to go. I know we have some videos about that, but you're going to be in and out, long story short. So parking, don't sweat it. Pop in, pop out of that restaurant, and get out of there. Here's a huge tip, guys. Again, this would be a power tip that sometimes I think gets overlooked. Those quests, and again, we're talking about Uber Eats here. We're giving you tips about, and stay tuned because I did get approved on DoorDash, so more to come on that. But for Uber Eats, okay, there's quests. So if you drive 5 rides, if you take 5 deliveries, let's say in an hour or during a certain time period, they will give you a bonus. And those quests really add up, especially once you start driving for maybe an entire Saturday or 5-6 hours. You can get multiple quests, and those stack on top of each other. And it sent me from $60 and $50 to $100 or more dollars, because those bonuses can be $25 just like that, just by doing what you're doing, which is driving and making those deliveries. So I mentioned DoorDash, another big tip. I know Mike will agree with this. Toggle between the apps. So I've given you some advice on when to drive. Avoid those early mornings. There's a strategy to it. But let's say Uber Eats is slow per se, then you can open maybe DoorDash, and you can schedule some time to drive on DoorDash. And we did this all the time whenever we drove for Uber and Lyft and did rideshare. If we would have them on at the same time, and we would see which request we would get first, and we would take the ones that were more that would pay us more. It just makes sense. So consider that. I would absolutely, on this channel, we absolutely recommend you get approved on as many of those platforms as you can. I would recommend 2 at first, just to become familiar with the apps. So toggle between those apps. So here's another one. So let's say that you're driving all Saturday long, and think about what you're doing. You're driving from restaurant to customer, from restaurant to customer. Well, as you get familiar with your city, just naturally being out that long, you're gonna need to take a break. So it's a power tip that this one's more for you. When you're out that long, you're gonna have to go to the restroom, right? So find those restaurants like a Chipotle or a place that you could just pop in real quick, like a Dunkin' Donuts for me. I have those areas mapped out where I know if I'm in Squirrel Hill, I'm gonna go to Dunkin' Donuts. If I'm in Oakland, I'm going to Chipotle. And these are places I know I can pop in. It has a public restroom. I can get in and out without disrupting any of the line or things like that. So it happens, you're out for 6 hours, 7 hours, you're gonna need a break. So moving on, and again, I wanna know what you guys think. If you love this content, if you think these tips are valuable, these are tips from what I've learned. So for those of you who might be just tuning in, I am relatively new to Uber Eats. I've driven over 1,200 Uber rides, and these are tips coming from me that are for you, for new drivers or even existing drivers, meant to help you guys out. Tips and ways to avoid some mistakes that I've made getting started with Uber Eats. So another one, when it comes to those goals, make sure to celebrate those goals. I know that there have been days where I didn't feel like driving. I really didn't. And for maybe it was a long week and I was a little bit, maybe I hit my revenue goals. I was like, well, I made a lot of money this week. That's fantastic. Maybe I should take a break. But those small wins, again, they really add up and they put you in a position to, hit those larger goals, right? So even the small goals, get out there, put in those few hours. And, even an hour is better than nothing. That hour could pay for maybe a really nice dinner for you and a loved one, or pay for your groceries for the entire week just by driving for an hour. So celebrate those small goals. And then also, don't be afraid to pass on a request. Let's say you're sitting there and it's a little bit slow. If it's a request that is very outside of that density range, again, we talk about that density, you want to stay in that hot area, then don't be afraid to pass on it. It's okay. There was another driver out there who will take that order. But for me, I've seen customer requests that pull me 25, 30 minutes outside the city. And it's going to take me a whole hour to complete this trip for $10. And it's just simply not worth it. So don't be afraid. It's completely fine to deny or pass on some of those requests. It's perfectly fine. Here's another one. As we wrap things up here, a little bonus tip from me to you. So obviously in today's world, we all have to be careful with using PPE and taking care of ourselves and using hand sanitizer. Here's a little power tip for me, a strategy to keep you all safe. Whenever you're opening the door to a restaurant, think about where most people grab the door handle, right smack dab in the middle on the top of the door handle. So what I do is I go and open the door actually using the bottom of my hand, and I open it from the bottom of the handle where nobody ever touches. So this will keep you safe, and it's an extra level of effort to keep the customer safe as well. And when you're leaving, you can use your foot to open the door so you don't have to touch the door handle. So I hope those tips have helped you and given you some ideas on how to make more money, how to make the most of your time, and how to set goals. I think that I've heard amazing feedback from Mike about this series, and I'm really, really happy to support the channel and give my tips and advice, and I hope that they help you all. So again, this is Matt from Your Driver Mike. I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Make sure to check out Mike's latest videos and please subscribe if you haven't done so. Thank you.